everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies. Hey!
We're back at it with a special weekend edition due to our schedules. This is when we're recording it, so hopefully you guys are not unhappy that you've gotten a new episode because it's coming out, man. It's here. Unfortunately, we do not have Michael Vogel joining us for this today because he's still on vacation. He will be back tomorrow as we're recording this, and so we'll be back hit the ground running next week with all the stuff that we're doing, including House of the Dragon on Monday. But let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you can see some of Mr. Vogel and, to a lesser extent, my current work on YouTube with all 3 seasons of Strawberry Shortcake Berry in the Big City, the first 2 seasons on Netflix, along with the 4 holiday specials.
There you go. All of it is there for you all to watch. Any of your Angry Birds stuff coming soon? Or you know anything about that? What can we say?
My episode is going to be in the second batch that are being released. I think it was the first 8 that were released on Amazon Prime. Okay. And I believe I know when the second batch are being released, but I'm not positive. So I don't want to say. I won't say that it will be this year.
There you go. But sometime this year, but on Prime Video and
on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Right. So if you guys want to catch up with Angry Birds, it is on Prime Video. It is executive produced by one of our good friends, Eric Rogers, and a number of our friends are writers on that show. So if you guys are enjoying that show, it's an extension, in essence, of the Geek Buddies. We should probably have Eric on here at some point to talk about that show. Maybe
he actually mentioned that. He was like, "Are you waiting for your episode to drop before you have me on the show?" And I was like, "I hadn't considered that, but I guess that would make the most sense."
We should coincide it with your episode. Absolutely. But sure, we will absolutely make that happen because Eric's a great guy. But what we got going on, for those you don't know, if this is your first time watching the Geek Buddies, taking a chance on us, first of all, thank you. Second, what we do is each of us takes a geek news item. We talk about it amongst ourselves, take a couple of breaks, and then we hit our big geek news item, which today is our review of The Boys, season 4, episode 6. A lot that went down in that one. Dirty Business, I think is what it's called, or something like that. But we will get into that one for sure. But first, we want to start off with some DC news here, Shannon, and then we'll get into some trailers as well. But let's start off with this DC news, and I want to work people into DC a little bit slowly on this one. So we'll start off with the ARKHAM Asylum news. This just dropped yesterday, the news here on ARKHAM Asylum, that it looks like this is not happening. It has been canceled. This particular version of this proposed TV series, ARKHAM Asylum, which was a show, of course, set within the walls of Gotham City's infamous facility for the criminally insane. And this was originally slated to, or announced rather, back in late of 2022. Antonio Campos had come on board to serve as the writer and showrunner of the series. The third writer brought on to the DC project since it was originally announced in July of 2020. So that's it. It was originally announced in 2020. Then in 2022, a third writer came on and showrunner Antonio Campos. But now Variety is reporting that Campos's version will not proceed. They add that it's still possible that a new project with the setting could be developed here. And of course, this is a series that was meant to be focused on the Gotham PD of the Matt Reeves directed, Robert Pattinson led the Batman franchise. So, Shannon, a lot of people have been saying that the Batman Part 2 might be in danger, even though James Gunn keeps saying that it is coming. There's a script almost close to finish. We're totally shooting. It's going to happen. But you hear these little rumors, and now this ARKHAM Asylum series is canceled, even though they're saying there may be another version down the road. The fact that they're killing this version tells me they're going back to square one. What's your thoughts on this reaction here that a Matt Reeves universe show is being canceled? Of course, we have the Penguin coming, but this one has been canceled.
Well, I mean, when they initially announced this back in July of 2020, the idea, Gotham PD is a great book.
Yes,
it is a great series. Especially that first main arc where I believe Mr. Freeze is the antagonist. Yeah. But it was approaching the DC universe from a point of view which for the most part we hadn't gotten before, which is like, these are the cops who have to contend with a masked vigilante in their series and the complicated relationship that they have with that masked vigilante. And you get to know these characters. I believe this is where Renee Montoya was originally introduced.
Right.
But it was a great, great book. So when they announced that Terrence Winter of The Sopranos fame and Boardwalk Empire was going to be running this, it's like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. And then a couple years pass, he's no longer doing it. The show has taken a little bit of a creative pivot where now it's going to be Arkham Asylum. It's going, okay, the possibilities are there. Then I think it was last year that James Gunn even said that the Arkham series was no longer going to be with Matt Reeves and Batman. It was going to be for the new, his new DCU. Now, I know when Michael and I kind of speculated a few weeks ago that, like, yeah, the Batman 2, it might get canceled. Like, that's a possibility, because when you're making way for this big cinematic universe that they want to do with DC, there are going to be sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And there were many people in the comments talking about, thank goodness Mike and I didn't run WB, because like these were idiots. The Batman made money. It's like, it did. But when you're looking at a big picture, is this worth potentially diluting your product? Now, I really like the Matt Reeves Batman movie.
Ditto.
I'm very excited for the Penguin series, but the idea that it might be cast aside so they can focus more on the big DC universe, I think that's very possible. That's not, I'm not saying I want that to happen.
Right.
I like that movie. I would like to see more stories coming out of that version, coming out of that universe, but it might happen. And this project getting canceled kind of lends a little bit of credibility to that theory. Now, that is not to say that that's what's happening. You know, we don't work for Warner Brothers. We don't know what's going on inside, but the idea that, you know, the Penguin was pretty much already done. So the idea that the Matt Reeves universe is starting to contract a little bit, that just kind of lends a little bit of support to the idea that maybe the Batman Part 2 doesn't happen. Again, I'm not saying that's what I hope. I'm saying that is a possibility. But yeah, I mean, the idea of a Gotham PD series, I still think is a very viable idea, especially in the James Gunn in the James Gunn universe, as well as an Arkham universe, or as well as an Arkham series. But I think you don't do an Arkham series set in your new DC universe without first introducing your Batman.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? I mean, we're seeing now how these Venom and Morbius and whatever else, the Craven, like without Spider-Man, although these films have made money, certainly the first two Venom films, first one really making money, the second one a little bit much less, but they've tried to do this without Spider-Man and it hasn't really worked, and it's been an issue. So the idea of starting an Arkham Asylum series without establishing your Batman in that universe, the James Gunn universe, because as you said, this is where James Gunn wants to put it, in the James Gunn universe, doesn't make sense. You want to establish your Batman first, then the Rogues Gallery. Doing it in reverse, I don't think has ever really worked. So it's an odd decision. So I understand that James now is like, no, let's put the kibosh on this. We're going to yank it back, and then we'll go forward. You know, people have to understand studios operate at sometimes glacial paces and sometimes super fast pace. It just all depends. And right now, I think they're slowly but surely making these moves to make it clear where they sit on this whole James Gunn DC versus Matt Reeves Batman DC type of approach, right? It's very similar to Star Wars. It feels like Filoni wants this kind of Star Wars, pew, 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 cutesy, kind of teen, tween type thing. Other people like Tony Gilroy and other people want to make a Star Wars. And I believe Leslie Headland want to do a more mature Star Wars, a darker Star Wars. If they were left to their own vices without Dave Filoni interfering, then it's a different Acolyte series. And I think the same thing might be happening here with James Gunn. Now, I'm not saying James Gunn's trying to be cutesy, but certainly James Gunn leans more to the humor or the scatological humor or that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean the stakes are gone. You can look at the first season of Peacemaker. There were stakes in that first season of the show, along with the humor. That's his approach. Matt Reeves does not fit that approach. So I wonder if, and according with the brand change too recently, Shannon, the changes, HBO Max now becoming like HBO, I wonder what the approach is, because they're letting the Penguin stay under the Max banner because they've got too much promotion for it, blah, blah, blah. But this may be the last gasp, possibly, of the Matt Reeves universe, is this Penguin series, which would be a shame. Or if some of you were right, who are out there saying, no way, James is going to do it. He's going to let him do the Batman 2. The Batman Part 2 might be the last gasp of that particular approach to DC. Because what Michael said a couple weeks ago, rather, and you agreed with him, is like, they probably want to streamline. And as I thought about it more and more after our show, I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense with how James Gunn approaches things. I don't think he feels comfortable sharing the credit for how DC is going forward if you have someone who's doing their own thing. Do you know what I'm saying? He feels maybe it might confuse the fans, just putting it out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if this Joker movie and if this Batman movie gets made, that's the last gasps of this Elseworlds type of approach to DC, and we're much more under the umbrella of James Gunn. Do you think the same thing, or am I off base on that?
Oh no, I think that's very possible. I mean, again, like obviously you and I, we are speculating, and from some people's points of view, we might be wildly speculating. Yeah. But that does make sense that DC would like to replicate Marvel's success. That is something that they would like to do. Now, you know, we can all talk about how Marvel, in Phase 4 and Phase 5 has kind of not been able to replicate their own success. But DC, what Marvel did with those first 3 phases, DC would love to have that.
Right.
And is the quickest approach to do a bunch of standalone movies, or is it to do a shared universe? I mean, with the shared universe, you're gonna get more connectivity. Like they watched how that shared universe theory that really worked. Like people, you know, leading up, especially to like Infinity War and Endgame, the people that may not have been into Marvel, they saw the way that the audience was reacting, and it's like, oh, I want to be a part of this. Let me go watch everything that led up to it so I can be a part of that conversation. Now, you know, there's certainly the idea that the shared universe, the novelty is worn off. And it's just like, you saw what happened with 4 and 5 and all the series that you then kind of had to watch, that the audience did lose steam. But I still think, especially with James Gunn's DC universe, that there is still a viable path forward for a cinematic universe to be extremely financially successful. But man, I mean, the thing with people saying that, no, James Gunn said it's happening, James Gunn says it's happening, James Gunn says it's happening. Ben Affleck was supposed to be Batman for Matt Reeves. I mean, like that was something that they said, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, until it isn't.
Well, remember when he replaced Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck to end the Snyder thing, both press releases were issued essentially saying, but we might work on a project down the road. And even Gal Gadot said, James Gunn and Peter Safran told me that we were working on a Wonder Woman 3. So like the idea that James is playing this game, and look, it's a tough game, and this is not in any way to vilify James Gunn. It's a tough situation he's been thrown in with all these different tentacles, and he's trying to put it all into one lane so it can happen. The problem is, as I said, studios move at a more glacial pace, and they don't want fans getting into a riot with all these massive changes all at once. So progressively, they're changing certain things step by step by step, hoping the anger dissipates, like flares up, but then dissipates quickly, I think. Yeah,
and you know, I think when the whole Gunn Safran thing was announced, that we were all incorrect, but the three of us are like, they are not going to say what this next slate of movies is until they finish their current DC universe, because you're kind of kneecapping the movies that are still to come, with like the Shazam sequel, Blue Beetle, with Aquaman 2.
Right.
And that is not what they did. They went ahead and announced what their first chapter was going to be.
Right.
And Shazam, I think you could argue, was not a great film. And the box office certainly reflected the lack of interest in that movie. Blue Beetle did okay. Aquaman did the best of all of them.
Right.
But I think in general, like, we were all pretty surprised that they said, hey, so what you're seeing right now isn't going to count. this is what we're doing going forward. But again, like studios, they make announcements sometimes that don't make sense to us.
Yeah.
But the idea that the Batman 2 could be a casualty of this new Gunn universe, I think is very possible. And again, that's not saying what I want. I'm saying that's a distinct possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's move on to some more DC here, man. We spent a lot of time on that particular one. Now this is like last week. I'm going to issue this now. We're going to take a look at some new Superman set picks. So I just wanted to give you a spoiler warning ahead of time. This is probably going to be a 5 to 10 minute discussion. So it will be a time code down there so you can jump to the next subject if you don't want to hear us talking about it. But we are going to put up photos, for the latest photos from the Superman set picks, and give our thoughts on what we're seeing here. So just fair warning, skip to the next time code now. But if not, you're sticking around, we're going to jump into it. So Shannon, let's take a look. I'm going to go through like 3 of these photos. I'll just bring them all up at the same time, or a couple of them, I guess. And then you can tell me what is going on here. Let's start with your boy, Nathan Fillion here as Guy Gardner, Isabela Merced there as Hawkwoman, on set there with David Corn Sweat and that flowing red cape behind him. I still like the red trunks. I don't know why people are not liking the red trunks. I like the red trunks. And then you have this shot where Mr. Terrific is there with Hawkwoman. There's someone in blue who I imagine might be Metamorpho, and Guy Gardner there with David Corn Sweat as well, or Nathan Fillion. And then this shot, which is this blue, I don't know if this is a person or a dummy or what this is, while things are exploding around them from a city, from the city shot there. There's some explosion they're doing in the city. So these are the shots that we have. I go back to this one again. Shannon, I got to get your thoughts. What is this look? Do you like this look? Does this make any sense? Your thoughts?
I mean, I'm really curious about the whole thing because I guess on like if you get a closer shot, like you can zoom in that there is some sort of Maxwell Lord emblem on all of their suits. Now I have not seen that. That is just that is what I read, and that could be incorrect. I've not seen it, but the idea that Maxwell Lord is sort of this corporate sponsor of these superheroes, I think is very, very interesting. I think for what we're seeing, obviously they're going to CG and some wings for Hawk Girl or Hawkwoman. I don't know if they've said. I think on IMDb she's listed as Kendra Saunders.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she looks cool. I mean, the idea that Maxwell Lord, if they are in fact sort of corporate sponsored heroes, that there would be some uniform to how they look. That makes perfect sense. I think Hawk Girl looks cool. I like the way Eddie Gathegi looks as Mr. Terrific. The Guy Gardner's is Dude, interesting. Like,
you gotta talk about that. What the hell?
I mean, the outfit I have no issue with. I mean, from the comics, the uniform usually comes from the ring. But if you are, if you want some sort of I guess symmetry amongst the uniforms, like, I guess that's what he would do. I've never been a fan of the bowl cut. I like the versions of Guy Gardner where he's rocking the more high and tight, the way they designed him for like Young Justice. And so like the bowl cut to me is always a little jarring because that's something that when I think of bowl cuts, I think Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber. And that is obviously not how Fillion looks, but I mean, this is very clearly a wig.
Yeah.
But the bowl cut is not one I would have gone with. But also, that being said, this is being taken. These photos are being taken from someone's camera. Like it is not through the film camera or the digital camera that they're going to be using. So you always have to give a little bit of grace there that this is not the final product. What they're going to do digitally to make that wig look better, I'm not sure. And again, I imagine there are Guy Gardner fans out there like, no, he has to have the bowl cut. And I totally respect that point of view. Yeah. But the idea that they all kind of look a little similar, I think is cool. And I also think it gives them space to grow. That, Mr. Terrific, that's a pretty classic Mr. Terrific costume. Yeah. But Hawk Girl, Hawkwoman, and Green Lantern, like they're they are probably going to change their outfits once they are maybe not under the corporate umbrella of Maxwell Lord.
Right. Oh, yeah, good point. Now, I do want to highlight what you said. So what you said, so this is the emblem you're talking about that looks like Lord Tech there in the middle with Mr. Terrific and there with Guy Gardner. So this is what people are speculating, that this could be Lord Tech. The suits look bad. They're supposed to look bad. The Lord Tech suits are made by villain Maxwell Lord. They're meant to look boring, corporate, and bleak. This is from @DCU Brief. So maybe this is done on purpose and people are overreacting to this because they don't know what the story is about how they look and why they look this way in the outfits. And I saw people speculating, Shannon. Oh, let me stop, Shannon. I saw people speculating, Shannon, that this is like a reverse Kingdom Come, in that Clark is coming back to remind people of what heroes are, and that it isn't that he left and the young heroes did all this. It's more a matter of that he is coming back to stop this corporate kind of approach to thing. Irony, working under a corporation like Warner Brothers Discovery, but it's gonna come back to stop this corporate approach to heroism and to bring back like faith and love and support and hope through superheroes. So it's an interesting decision, and what better way to do that than to show these guys all looking the same in corporate kind of superhero outfits, and you question whether they're what they're doing is for the public's best interest or for the corporation's best interest, right? So this would be a fascinating approach to if that's the approach they're having, and certainly the costumes seem to lean that way.
Yeah, and another page to that theory is, again, depending on which version of Hawkgirl that they're doing. Look at Guy Gardner, who was given this ring by the Guardians of Oa, but now he's working for Maxwell Lord. Like that's interesting to me. Like, Mr. Terrific is a human, like it is a super smart human. Depending on what they do with Kendra Saunders, I mean, she could be an alien, she could be a reincarnated, version of this character.
Sure.
And then you have someone who is essentially an alien space cop.
Yeah.
So these are all interesting. These are all interesting theories, and I think the idea that Superman is coming in to kind of take the corporations out, like do what's best for the people. I think that's a really interesting idea. And again, none of this will be confirmed until we see the movie,
of course.
But it's fun for fans and geeks like us to speculate.
Yeah, and I think it can be ripe down the road for conflict because, if they go off on their own and they cause problems as heroes because they're no longer protected by the corporate structure, then it becomes an issue of, well, if you hadn't, broken this thing, Superman, they wouldn't have done this. So there's a way to kind of turn it around to have conflict in future movies with what Superman did by reawakening this new purpose to being a hero that is broken away from the corporate structure. And you could even create kind of like Civil War in Marvel, right? Some superheroes stay in the corporate structure, some don't. So what does that lead to down the road in terms of a civil war? And there are unsubstantiated rumors that Millie Alcock is apparently on set and possibly shooting some of her Supergirl stuff. They're on set for the cameo that she will possibly have in Superman. So that'll be curious to see if there's pictures of that coming, and then we'll get to see the Supergirl outfit maybe at some point down the road, which I think would kind of suck, to be honest with you, because like you kind of want to have some mystery to her. And so maybe they're keeping that under wraps and not out in the open like they're doing this. It's crazy to me that they're just doing this all wide out in the open, Shannon. With today's day of social media and people are running wild, as we saw already on the internet over these pictures, it's kind of an interesting situation. I would want to protect all of this, but
Yeah, I mean, when you're shooting out in the public, though, on a location, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, going back to like the Dark Knight Rises, when they were shooting that big, third act set piece, like that was all through the streets of like Chicago. The Marion Cotillard, who was supposed to be playing some, rando character, it's like, well, she sure looks like Talia al Ghul at this point. but okay, maybe she's Beth.
Just Beth. One last thing before we leave DC, and this is a surprise to you because I didn't put this on the rundown, but Zack Snyder, he is not done talking about the Justice League. He teased that the so-called Snyder Cut of Justice League may get a theatrical release, Shannon, He posted this on Vero. He said, quote, want to see Zack Snyder's JSL on the big screen? ... Stay tuned for a date. So what do you think about this? Do you think this is him messing around? Or do you think, especially on the heels of Rebel Moon being so roundly destroyed, that Zack went back to WB and was like, please let me release this thing? Because he is coming back to do what, a 300 animated series. So do you think this was like part of the deal? If this really is going to happen, okay, I'll come back, but you've got to give my film a theatrical release and actually adopt it into the overall WBD family, right? It can't just be the, for lack of a better term, the redhead stepchild or the stepchild nobody wants. You got to bring it into the family, not canon, just bring it into the family. Do you think this is going to happen? Do you think this is probably part of the deal?
I mean, I have no idea.
I'm not going to speculate. I know you don't know.
I mean, as this was just sprung on me, I don't know if him being in negotiations to do an animated series, like, I mean, I guess those negotiations are done, like he's doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if his team would have been able to tack on like, hey, you also have to release Justice League in a limited theatrical engagement. Yeah. I mean, it's the type of thing, it's become kind of humorous now that he's like, and one more thing. He's the cinematic version of Columbo right now. Oh, and one more thing. It's to me, it's kind of a funny idea. But I probably would still go see it because of the two versions. I thought Zack Snyder's Justice League was, vastly superior to what we got. And the way that it was shot, it was meant to be seen on an IMAX screen. That ratio that it was in. So yeah, I don't know if his team would have been able, and I also don't know if he would have the goodwill at Warner Brothers to throw that into the negotiations for him to do a 300 animated series. But if it happens, there's a good chance that I'll be there. So even if it's a joke, like, sure, I'd be interested in watching that on the big screen.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to see it. And he is having some kind of big event for Rebel Moon, the director's cuts, both parts at, I think, one of the theaters in LA in August. And I was this close to maybe, and I might still come up. I don't know. We'll see. But those,
know what these two movies need? More.
Yeah, you're not wrong, dude. You're not wrong. But it's director's cuts, the most part. Not bad.
Okay.
I know. All right. Well, let's take a break. We're done with DC. We're getting into some trailers right after this.
Let's
do it, Shannon. 3 trailers. Take it away.
You know what? We love IP. We spent almost a half an hour talking about DC. We're gonna spend the end of the show talking about another property, and we always talk about Marvel and Star Wars. But something we need to remember as audience members is original ideas are good. And so for this week's trailers, it's 3 original ideas coming from some names that The first trailer I'm going to talk about is the trailer for Afraid. This is starring John Cho, Catherine Watterson. This is coming from Blumhouse and writer-director Chris Weitz of About a Boy and Rogue One fame. Basically, if you have any trepidations about AI, if you have a serious fear of it, maybe skip this one. This is essentially what happens if Siri decides they would maybe be a better parent to your child than you, and it sounds like Siri might want to kill you. Again, I think this movie it almost kind of seems like Megan, but without the doll. This is just the AI kind of the Alexa kind of taking over your house and eventually taking over the rearing of your children. A movie like this can kind of be easy to dismiss. But because it is Blumhouse, because it's John Cho, who I'm a huge fan of, and it's Chris Weitz, who has written some very good films, I'm kind of interested in this one. But Johnny, I'll throw it over to you. What did you think of our first look at Afraid?
Yeah, I have to say, at first I was like, I've seen the films with robots lately, right? There was the Rashida Jones one that's coming.
Sunny.
Yeah, Sunny. Then we had After Yang, the Colin Farrell one. Then there was the one with Mahershala Ali. I think it's called Swan Song. That's on Apple TV. That is fucking fantastic and about AI in essence. or a clone of yourself replace. Like, it's fascinating. So, and then we had Ex Machina, of course. So we've kind of dealt with the idea of AI or robots or whatever kind of taking over our lives. But this right near the middle of the trailer got me with the turn the AI makes in terms of being able to like take pictures of you without knowing, like, you're what they do with this information, right? They're the ones that are, what is the big paranoia people have? People put tape over their cameras because they're scared that, government is watching them. And of course, you watch those like 60-minute specials or documentaries, and the NSA can absolutely spy on you if they want to spy on you. These people can find ways to break into your home through your computers or through your phone. Everybody's afraid of that. The fact that they can send you ads. What are people saying all the time? Like, I just looked something up on Google and somehow it ended up on my Amazon. So clearly there are algorithms that are going on all over our world. And with AI now coming like gangbusters, despite whatever the SAG deal was or whatever, like, the fear here is very big about AI. So the idea that it would take over your life and like monitor and like raise your child and then essentially put your child and everybody else beholden, enslaved rather, to them and their approach to things, I think is the big fear that everybody has. And so in essence, you turn into a zombie because the AI has taken away all your free will, right? It says it knows you, and you can turn over the running of your life and the function of your life to AI. And isn't that what we're all kind of slowly doing, is turning it over a little bit over to computers and electronics? So it takes advantage of that. I love John Cho. I'm always kind of half in, half out on Catherine Waterston, depending on the role.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Catherine. And I mean, Inherent Vice was just, I wanted to put my head through a wall with her performance there. And I thought she was okay in Fantastic Beasts, but there are other things I've seen her in that I've enjoyed her in. So it just all depends on the project. But I mean, this is a good pairing, and the kids look really cool and interesting. And when it makes the horror turn, I'm like, okay, let's see what this is all about. Because when she says, "Do you want to see what I really look like?" What is this that she really looks like? Yeah. So I'm very, very curious, man. This took her and went like holy shit direction,
Yeah, this one comes out August 30th. I'm surprised they actually didn't hold this one a little closer to Halloween because of the horror aspect. But it used to be August was kind of the dumping grounds for movies, but in the last 15 years, 20 years, that has changed. But again, I think you've got two good stars. I actually like Catherine Waterston. And I'm again always a big John Cho fan, and this is a very topical film. But
who is the voice of the AI? Do you know who the voice?
It's not listed on IMDb. Like, there are other people listed in the cast, like Keith Carradine and David Dastmalchian, Ricky Lindholm. But yeah, I don't see the AI is called Aya, and I don't see that listed anywhere in IMDb. But it's a female voice. Yeah. So, but yes, Afraid comes out August 30th. And another original idea. You got the trailer for My Old Ass. This one stars Aubrey Plaza and Maisie Stella, who was a child actor on the show Nashville, the ABC series, and this is written and directed by Megan Park, who, if you grew up watching The Secret Life of an American Teenager, she was one of the kids in that. This one, I saw the trailer for this when I was watching, I think, A Quiet Place, and this trailer made me crack up. And this is also a Sundance selection as well, but it's basically Maisie Stella and two of her friends. They decide to trip on mushrooms, and part of Maisie Stella's trip is she ends up seeing the 39-year-old version of herself played by Aubrey Plaza, and they end up being able to communicate. So Aubrey Plaza is basically giving her the warnings of things to avoid in her life. One of the best moments when Maisie Stella first sees Aubrey Plaza confronted with the reality that this is the 39-year-old version of me. She's like, "You can't be me. I don't have a gap in my teeth." She's like, "Yeah, wear your retainer." It's like, this just seems like a really, really funny and potentially heartwarming film. But Johnny, I'll throw it over to you. What did you think of the first look at My Old Ass?
Yeah, you know, sometimes I look at these films and I go, I don't think this one's for me. Like sometimes, but then watching the trailer, because I saw the clip up on YouTube, and I was like, Aubrey, yeah, another small independent film with Aubrey Plaza, right? Like she does 5 million of these, so I was just like, oh, okay. But then, you know, you put it on the list, so I watched it. I actually liked it, and I, it's kind of mind blowing that Aubrey is legitimately 40 years old in real life. It really is kind of weird to me. She's still April from Parks and Rec, trying to get her life back together in my mind, but clearly she's come on over the last few years with a number of projects and really established herself as a powerful actress, a force of nature in essence, in a lot of these different films. So this one looks really interesting as a coming of age story. And I like that there's a twist here near the end where, of course, the older version is trying to talk to her about like life lessons. Like it's that old question. What would you tell yourself if you could go back in time and talk to yourself at this age or whatever? So she's doing that, but there's near the end of the trailer, it has a little twist where the younger girl says to her, you know, you need to remember what it was like to enjoy your life and to be and to be, how can I say, to not be afraid, to be unafraid, to go out there, to take chances, to do whatever. So I think it works in both ways. And certainly for someone like me who's at that age in my life is like, wow, what happened to the adventurous guy and the crazy guy? Of course, I had to settle him down so that I could live. But like, what happened to that spark of mine for those kinds of things? I think this trailer spoke to me in that way at the end. So I found that to be interesting. And of course, from a female point of view, makes it all the more interesting as well. And I think she's gay. So what's the point of view there with all of that that's going on? I mean, asking to grab her own ass. I mean, that's hilarious to me. So this one works. This one, and the reviews peppered throughout the trailer made me even more excited from people I respect. So I'm definitely going to see this one.
So this one, according to what I read, it only is going to have a limited theatrical run before it goes to Amazon Prime. So if it is playing in a theater near you and you want more original stories out there, this is the type of movie that you want to go out and support. But My Old Ass comes out September 13th in theaters before heading to Amazon Prime.
And I want to say one more thing. Megan Park also did The Fallout from back in 2021, and that got a lot of great publicity there for the film that it was. A lot of people enjoyed it with Jenna Ortega and Maddie Ziegler. So this is a good up and coming young filmmaker. So not only, as Shannon said, will you support original content, you're supporting original creators doing stuff and where else, and supporting them going to the next level with their work. So just want to
and these are also, it is from executive producer Margot Robbie as well. These are from the producers of Saltburn and Barbie. So yeah, give this one a shot. Hopefully we'll all have a great time. And that leads us to our last trailer. This one looks like an absolute blast. This is the trailer for Jackpot. This one stars Awkwafina, John Cena, and Simu Liu, directed by Paul Feig of Bridesmaids and Spy and the Heat fame. This one in the not too distant future in California, there is they institute a grand lottery where the winnings can be claimed by someone with a losing ticket if they murder the winner.
Oh,
of the three wrestlers, and Johnny, I'll be interested to get your take on this. Of the three wrestlers in the recent years who have been able to make that leap from the squared circle to the silver screen, The Rock, Dave Bautista, and John Cena. John Cena seems to have dialed in the best to the comedy.
Yeah, 100%.
And this one just looks like it's going to be so much fun. Again, Paul Feig behind the camera. We all can have our feelings about his version of Ghostbusters, but the rest of his filmography, you can't really deny. That guy knows how to direct a funny movie. And this trailer looks like it is going to be just an absolute blast. So, Johnny, what did you think of our first look at Jackpot with an exclamation point?
Well, I mean, first of all, I thought this was the sequel to Quiz Lady with right? Because I mean, it's essentially another show or whatever. But I like this. This was a lot of fun. And I went in with my, like this, because Cena's been doing a lot of these. But you're right. Comedy wise, he has nailed it. I'm telling you, I can't say this enough. As a guy who watched him for years, decades in the WWE, I did not know he had this comedy gear. There wasn't a lot of comedy stuff that he did. Yeah, there were promos and there were sketches or whatever, little moments, but it wasn't like you sensed that he was a natural comedian. what he's been able to do, even in serious things or serious moments, like at times in Peacemaker, find the humor of the situations has been incredible. His instincts have been incredible. And he's popping up all over the place. Like, he is hosting Shark Week upcoming. He is the host of Shark Week, for fuck's sake. And I'm not going to spoil it, but you and I just saw him in a particular series recently pop up out of nowhere for just a quick few scenes in an episode. And you're like, what the him? And it was perfect casting for what they were trying to do with that particular section of that episode. So it's just these things that I'm so blown away by with him. And Awkwafina, I mean, God love her, man. I like Awkwafina. Like, I've defended her a number of times. And defend the song from Little Mermaid a number of times. So I like it. And I liked Quiz Lady with her and
Sandra Oh.
Yeah, Sandra Oh. I thought that was really fun. And Paul Feig has one blemish on his record, and that is the Ghostbusters film, depending on if you like it or don't like it. But Simple Favor, a lot of people enjoyed. I love The Heat. His other Bridesmaids, his other films that he's done. Like, he's got a pretty good track record as a director, in my opinion. So this makes me want to see it. And I think it's a Hulu. Is it a Hulu film or what is it? Is it going to be in the theaters or is it a Hulu?
I think it's coming out in the theaters.
Okay. All right. I'll be surprised if this does well in the theaters, but this feels like a streaming type of film. But either way, I like the combo. I'm interested to see what it's going to be. And I thought the humor in here was really good. So yeah, I would say I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to see Peacemaker take on Shang-Chi in this movie.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I thought this looks like so much fun, and this is also the type of film. Again, it's an original idea. I mean, I'm hit and miss with Awkwafina, but I really liked her in Quiz Lady, and I really liked her in The Apology, which she got a. I think that's what it was called, right? The Apology.
Which one?
Where she was nominated for Best Actress.
Is that fair?
Farewell, not The Apology.
Right.
Yeah, I think she is a legitimately good performer that she's not always used in the best way. This one seems like they are able to maximize her comedic talents.
Yeah.
I mean, when she goes in disguise, and again, I won't say what she gets disguised as. If you want to go watch the trailer, she gets disguised. That is a very, very funny moment. But Jackpot with an exclamation point comes out August 15th.
Just don't show the whole movie in the trailer. Like, stop it. You show me Simu Liu as something, and then you show the turn with Simu Liu near the end of the trailer. Like, why would you show that? Let us have some mystery, for fuck's sake. So, so frustrating, man. So I just put that, my criticism. There we go.
You know what? It's August 15th. That's its release date. I'm trying to see what day that actually is, because you might be right that this is a streaming movie.
I feel like it might be a streaming movie, but I don't know with things like this. They're changing their minds all the time now with this stuff. So
August 15th is a Thursday. So now, dear audience, bear with me for one moment. Now I want to get to the bottom of this before we move on.
Yeah, it says Prime Video August 15th, but.
Oh, doggone it, man. I really wish I hope this has a theatrical run, because this looks very, very funny.
We'll see. All right. Simu Liu and John were in Barbie together as well. And so I wonder if there'll be a Shang-Chi joke between Awkwafina and Simu Liu in a certain moment of the film. It would be funny to see that. All right, so that's it for the trailers, right, Shannon? Are we good?
That is it.
All right, I will throw one thing in. If you guys haven't seen the new Batman Ninja trailer, 30-second teaser, watch that if you liked the Batman Ninja, which I did. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we will jump into our spoiler review of The Boys season 4, episode 6 right after this.
Do. Kind of.
Yeah, sure. All right, season 4, episode 6, Dirty Business. That's what this one was called. We had so much, but it's a spoiler review. Spoiler review. Turn back now if you haven't watched it, or if you don't care, keep hanging out with us. This one had some interesting stuff, Shannon. We had ourselves one unsettling torture scene for Huey down in Tech Knight's torture dungeon, at which they end up getting the information they need by the end by torturing Tech Knight by having his money go to good causes there. We also saw a big, massive reveal here in the relationship between Joe and Butcher, which you and I had, and I think a number of people had kind of guessed already ahead of time. We also had Victoria Newman really stepping forward here and embracing the situation with Homelander after Sage got shot in the head by Mother's Milk. And speaking of milk, this was the scene of the fucking season for me, in my opinion. Out of nowhere, Firecracker, who looked like she was about to fall off the totem pole or fall off the ladder, rather, of rankings there, swung a massive change in power while Sage is, discombobulated by the gunshot. She steps in. She apparently has been taking drugs the whole time so that she can lactate. She wanted to feed and essentially get into Homelander's good graces. My God, what an episode, Shannon. Oh, yeah. And by the way, Frenchie was refusing to see Mariko, and there was
Kumiko.
Kimiko. And there was more. I was thinking Wolverine. And there was more stuff going on with the storyline overall of them trying to get to what's going on here with Vought and what they're trying to do. So what did you think of this episode before we get into the specific storylines?
So Vogel likes to mention some of the more prudish aspects of my personality.
That's true.
And this episode, my Lord, the amount that I kept bringing my hand to my face to try to shield my innocent eyes from everything that was being displayed on the screen. I mean, again, the boys there, this show's ability to top themselves every time is just staggering. But at the same time, the characters all have such a heart.
Yeah.
And you get so emotionally invested into these people's lives so that when a crazy moment happens, like Mother's Milk sticking his finger in Web Weaver's web hole before he injects him up the butt with some drugs, like that was the beginning.
Yeah.
So, but again, this was another stellar episode. The humor is on point. The cast, again, doing a great job. It's just so much fun to watch. It's just fun to watch a show just be creatively firing on all cylinders. And even though there were so many moments in this, after particular, like Ashley, manually getting herself to climax and then wiping the results off on Huey's face in his web weaver mask. That was just like, but another really great episode. And yes, we get to that revelation that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in fact, everything is in Butcher's head right now in terms of Jeffrey Dean Morgan and his wife.
Yeah, where it seems like with Daphne, it seems like I was wrong on that. She is a real person. She was there on the tour. She was there, her dad was talking. So his dad was talking to her. So she's now gone for now, I guess. It seems like she's going back. She wanted to stay with Huey, but she's going back. So I still think we're not done with that. Again, I don't think you cast Rosemary DeWitt and not give her a much more meatier thing to do or role to play. So I think that's going to play itself out a little bit later. We only have 2 episodes left, so I wonder if she's coming back this season or next season, but I know something is going to happen there with them. And we see that Starlight is dealing with the anger of, people and yelling at her baby killer, all this kind of stuff. And so there's this air of tension, right, throughout this episode. And you cannot ignore that if you're even remotely aware of what's going on in our political world, in our in the United States, and of course other countries around the world like France and whatever, and things are going on, there's a lot of tension, and even now just in Britain, how the Labour Party destroyed the Conservative Party in the recent election. So there's tension here in the air. And so I think that permeates throughout this episode as they're doing the things that they're doing. The fact that Huey wants to go in and do this after his father has died. I mean, I don't know. I wonder if Butcher being the leader would have stopped him from being part of the mission. But of course, Butcher is distracted. Mother's Milk's not really, he's kind of a pushover. No matter how much he tries to not be a pushover, he's a bit of a pushover. And so you see that like Huey gets into this situation and what it leads to and what happens with Sister Sage. So you see the pieces moving into place. We get the Jewish space laser comment, but what Victoria Newman says in that speech is devastating, like just devastating. And no matter what side of the political spectrum you are, you can slide into conspiracy theories on both sides about the idea of an Illuminati or the billionaires running the world. But you can't, when you look at what Elon Musk is doing to Twitter, you cannot ignore how much influence billionaires have in terms of pumping out information or censoring information or restricting. So there is this feeling of like, we're feeling less and less like we have something to say in our political worlds. And so the fact that the show kind of captures on or latches onto that and brings that forward with everything that's going on, I think is one of the gifts of the show, to be honest with you, this season. The fact that they've stripped away the nuance and been like, no, we're just going to tell you exactly what this fucking show has always been about. I kind of appreciated that. So yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead, man.
Well, no, I was gonna say the pot shots at like the Kevin McCarthy character talking about that it took 18 times for him to be voted in.
Yeah.
The back and forth between Tech Knight, Firecracker, and A-Train talking about the generational wealth that he is the recipient of and where that wealth came from. My God, I mean, the just so topical, and just the whole idea about he now, the way they're able to slide in a vital plot point about how he is now his family rather is the largest shareholder in private prisons.
In prisons after they'd made their money catching slaves. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
And knowing that Homelander is kind of looking at the coup d'etat that he wants to implement and how those private prisons are going to come into play. I mean, the whole thing, if it weren't so funny, it would be terrifying at the same time.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, when you've got a political candidate for president saying that he wants to bring a former political member of his party before a military tribunal to be tried for treason, when you've got a member of that party at a church telling people it's time to start killing Democrats, when you've got Elon Musk saying half the country should be tried for treason, this is where you start to see that this rhetoric, they're reflecting back on us, Amir. And I saw some people saying, oh, it's too on the nose. It's too on the nose. No, it isn't. It's very clearly what is going on in our world, and we need to confront it. And I think the boys are doing that throughout the episode and throughout this season for sure. But let's get into the story. So let's get into the Huey situation. We have to talk about that whole thing, because some people have been upset about this scene. And I've seen this. Some people being like, well, they're just, being depraved just to be depraved. I saw other people say they made this scene to shame people who are into bondage, like consensual bondage. But I can give validity and say, okay, that's your opinion. I totally respect that. But I think it's supposed to reflect the depraved indifference they have to an innocent person like Huey, who is lying. Once they know it's Huey, they pull out all the tools. They're going to put another hole in him, in essence. So it just shows how little they care about people who are not on their level, or share in their depravity. I think that's what that scene was all about. I don't think it was trying to shame anybody who's into bondage. So, but it was an intense scene. It was a crazy scene. Was it believable though, Shannon? Did you think that, he could have gotten away with it as far as he did before he was found out? And did you like the ending with Ladio cutting in there and like finding the way to torture Tech Knight correctly to get the information there about what's going on with the prisons?
Again, not being a part of that community, I didn't sense a shaming that was happening, but again, not being a part of that community, I won't say whether it was or whether it wasn't.
Right.
I think this was sort of the person going undercover who is out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
And the results of that. in terms of what it takes to actually torture Tech Knight, giving away his vast wealth to liberal causes. Like I thought that was really funny. And yeah, the moment that Huey is unmasked and we find out what Tech Knight is going to do now. Yeah, that's villain behavior. I mean, I am going to cut a hole in you, and I am going to fuck that hole. Like my God. Yeah. So I didn't get the sense from that, but again, I'm reticent to say whether it is or whether it wasn't shaming. But I thought for Huey, literally having to just sacrifice his father, be the reason that his father died, and now going into this mission, like at the end when Starlight finds him, it's funny and it's sad all at the same time that he's just kind of like, I'm not okay. I mean, one, we watched what he had to endure as being part of this undercover mission, but at the same time, like, yeah, I'm not okay. I just had to kill my dad. Like, I'm not in a good place. So I thought the whole scene was very effective.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. Yeah, because I mean, like you can. My reaction is up on the channel. You can watch me going crazy doing that whole scene because it was like one on top of the other on top of it was like they were plussing everything, and I was just going crazy at how far they were going. By the way, Colby Minifee, I wish they'd give her an award, man, because she is game for anything, and it's amazing to watch her do. I mean, she was licking some dude's foot from the heel down, like. She is up for anything. And I love that there's this element to Ashley, the character of Ashley that Colby brings with this sexual element that is really high up there. She likes to dominate. And then in this sequence, you can see that apparently her and Tech Knight have been doing this for a while with what's his face, with Web Weaver, or with other people, and they want to try it out on Web Weaver. So there is, of course, as we've seen with the boys, there would be an element of this, like, how far can we go sexually? Because we've clearly tested the limits of our powers in this other way that is evil. How far can we go in that? So you see that as an element here throughout. But I mean, the bringing in the Django Unchained situation with his butler or whoever that guy is, essentially being the Sam Jackson, the Tech Knight's Leonardo DiCaprio, I thought was great. That being said, I don't know that he's dead. And I don't know that he didn't just trick them so they would stop torturing his boss and they could, and he let them escape because that was the only way they were going to stop torturing him. Because remember, he gets paid off the money they are now distributing to all these causes. It could affect his bottom line. And I don't know what the deal is with Ladio. So to me, that the fact that those three are left behind there with Tech Knight, I have questions about whether Tech Knight's actually dead. But I like the scene and the way it went forward. And I agree with you. At the end of Huey, like breaking down and crying, because maybe in a way, Huey wanted to torture himself in a way for what happened and the guilt he feels over his dad. And so although he was terrified, there was also, I think it might have unlocked something in him that broke him down. Like, God, I need help, basically. And so we'll see what that leads to. Yeah.
He needed a distraction.
Yes.
And even what he had to go through wasn't enough.
What a distraction. Good God almighty. All right, let's deal with Victoria Newman. What'd you think of this whole sequence here with her delivering the speech after Mother's Milk had shot Sage. In the head? And apparently she has superpowers beyond her intelligence, Shannon, because she lived getting shot point blank in the head. So fascinating with the approach there. Do you have to kill her some other way? Because does her brain just kind of recalibrate after it gets shot? Because that's in essence, we saw her do that in order to have sex with the Deep. So the shot makes sense. But is this a new power? Is this a power of hers rather that she can't be killed in that way? It's fascinating. So what do you think of the whole party scene with Victoria and everything like that?
Well, with Sage, at least, I mean, she, like the way that she had the Deep sort of lobotomize her, it was in a very carefully choreographed manner. Like, don't hit too hard. But basically her brain sort of rematerializes. Right. Like it's the healing, it's Wolverine's healing factor. It's just her brain. So the fact that a bullet would do more damage, like rather than like a little ball peen hammer to the eyeball.
Yeah.
A bullet doing more damage, but I do think eventually, like that, her brain, that's just what it does, is it rematerializes.
Yeah.
So to kill her, it's a shot to the head isn't going to do it. Like I think you have to aim for another vital organ. Everything with Victoria Newman. I mean, I think my favorite moment was probably her talking to I'm assuming the Speaker of the House, who's explaining, you know, anti-abortion laws and how she in her imagination head pops herself. I thought, we've all been in conversations where it's just like, I need something to happen. I need a wrecking ball to come out of nowhere and take me out, because that's the only way I'm getting out of this conversation. But yes, her speech at the end, very, you see how she and the rest of the soups are going to line up.
Yeah, do you think this is all an act, though? Do you think she's going to go forward with that point of view? Because I mean, her daughter is in danger. We saw her be vulnerable last episode with Samir. Butcher has Samir. So what do you anticipate is going to happen with this? Because what she's saying that speech just to get people on the side there with Homelander to keep this thing going, or does she have an ulterior motive here? Like when she, freed Stan Edgar last episode and got him out of there. She's stashing him somewhere, clearly, because Homelander brought it up to her. So do you think that she has another plan overall here to fuck Homelander and maybe not all the suits,
I think all of our intelligent characters, I think they all have ulterior motives.
Good point.
That would be my guess right now. But I think she knows being a second to Homelander is not going to work. Like he is eventually going to turn on everyone.
Yes.
Because of his neuroses. Like eventually, even his own son, at some point, he is going to turn his laser eyes on him.
Yeah.
So I think she knows.
Getting jealous about his own son when they were like, "Oh, two co-superheroes." You saw how uncomfortable he was putting his son in the same category as him. Good point. Yeah.
I think she knows Homelander as a leader is not sustainable.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think growing up hiding that soupness that she had, I think there is it's sort of ingrained behavior that I have to keep this quiet.
Yeah.
Because there's no unringing that bell. The moment that I come out as a soup, like there's no walking back from that. So I think of all the characters, I think Victoria Newman is probably the smartest because ultimately she's a survivor.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. I thought her speech was fantastic, very well delivered. And I thought the show opened the door for her to do it in a believable way. It would make sense that they would eventually stumble into a room and there's Sage making notes or doing what she's doing, because we still don't know what Sage's ulterior motive is in all of this. So Mother's Milk shooting her when she tries to go for the security thing makes sense, so that it opens the door for Victoria to step in and deliver that speech. So I thought organically within the show, they constructed that really well, and she delivered a hell of a speech. But before that speech, as you said, the different interactions with everybody is so unsettling. And some of you may have seen that episode going, "Oh, people aren't really like that." Yes, they fucking are. And I've had conversations with people growing up in the South where the casualness with which they speak about slavery is super unsettling, just casualness of it all. And so to see that played out in the way she had the interactions throughout the episode, I thought was fantastic. And as you said, the mansplaining of abortion and her wanting to blow her own head off rather than keep listening to another word from that guy made all the sense. But it was interesting how Sage spoke to her. Like, you remember being a little girl. You remember what it was like when they didn't want to listen to you. So in that moment, you got to see that Sage has a hatred, a real deep hatred of men, right? And of older people, and this feeling of what she experienced. So how is that going to be something that is a downfall for her? Because I don't think you include that unless it's a possible trigger for her, right? Because Sage certainly found the trigger for Mother's Milk that got him upset, which is his daughter, which led to his heart attack. So there are triggers. Everyone has a trigger. Everyone has a weakness. And so I wonder how that's going to play itself out. And the prisons thing, super unsettling on so many levels. But I really like before the speech, how Homelander tried to placate these people in power, these billionaires, with the same rhetoric from like a particular network, these overarching kind of things that they said. And I love that female billionaire or power woman was like, don't talk to us like we're one of the plebes. Like we're dealing with real shit here. So it goes to show you, you know, that there is certain people they put on certain levels to appeal to certain people, and there are people above them manipulating those people because they know they want to keep the masses believing whatever nonsense they can pump into their heads. So it's on both sides, by the way. I'm trying to be fair here. So this whole thing here, I thought, was a fascinating window into the reality of what's happening, you know, in that world. So yeah.
Impulse control is not one of Homelander's strong suits.
No, it isn't.
But I think there is a difference between him immediately laser eyeing Starlight's friend at Vought,
right,
versus doing it to one of these billionaires.
Right.
But you can see as they're peppering him with questions and he doesn't know the answers because he's only so smart. He's not Sister Sage, and she's got a bullet sitting in her head right now. You see that? Great. This is great. Great questions. Like, you see he's going to get to a point where no more questions, and he's just going to wreck house.
Yeah.
And having those folks, that vacuum of power is just going to create more chaos.
Yeah, agreed. Which is unsettling. Before we leave Homelander, we got to talk about this.
Oh my God.
As I said, that the changing of power here, it was an incredible move by a firecracker who was low person on the pole there. Even Noir, who had that great scene with A-Train, kind of figured things out, with the Deep rather, kind of figured things out of where he belongs. And I loved A-Train getting his hero moment as well, dropping off Mother's Milk, and seeing the kid look at him and smile. So maybe there is it's either a setup for A-Train to get killed by Homelander, or he's fully going to go on the side of the boys. But we had this scene here where it looked like Firecracker was trying to throw herself at the mercy of Homelander after Starlight had got the best of her yet again. We're leading to a massive confrontation between Starlight and Firecracker. It is no holds bar once she gets her powers back, because she keeps fucking her over. And so Firecracker here, we think she's serving herself up to be a sexual object of Homelander, but he says, I have no interest in you in that way. And then she squirts milk on his face. And Anthony Starr, in this moment, this reaction you see on the screen is incredible. Just incredible bit of acting there for Anthony Starr. And then she says, I've been taking a bunch of drugs. She's been planning this out for a long time. There is no guarantee that she was ever going to be able to nurse Homelander, but she got onto the drugs anyway with the off chance, the rare shot that she might have, and it came into play in this moment. Just when she looked like she was going to maybe be pushed out of the boys, or Sage was going to screw her over in some way, and they were talking down to her, she flipped the switch now. And now she is possibly Homelander's right-hand woman in this whole situation, which is even scarier, Shannon, than Sage, right? So what were your thoughts about this scene and how this all went down?
The lack of acting award nominations for this show is always a little startling, because Anthony Starr's reaction when he gets squirted is just so authentic. Like, it is shocking. But the whole moment, I mean, again, even Firecracker, someone that as an audience right now, we think of like, she ain't that smart.
Yeah,
Despite the fact that when you find out her history with Starlight, that a little bit of this persona that she puts on is in fact put on. It's like, no, she's not the idiot that we think she is. And now you see, you have a layer of cunning that no one is acknowledging right now. And the getting Homelander on her side, this is the guy who wins. He wins every fight,
right?
No matter what happens. And when that is suddenly potentially your guardian, when they have a vested interest in protecting you, whatever Sister Sage has planned, this might be a giant wrench in that wheel.
Yeah, and I thought when you look at how to construct a show, it's much more interesting when all the characters have different cards to play at different moments, where they can change in power status, where they can change in from what you thought they were to pulling a move that shocks you. But the writers have done a great job of laying the groundwork. As you said, Shannon, this is a woman who comes clearly from not a intelligent or wealthy background. The cute, beautiful blonde princess that everybody loves, blonde hair, blue-eyed princess. Of course, she won. This is Tanya Harding versus Nancy Kerrigan in essence, and she is Tanya Harding is Firecracker, and so she found her way into this situation to become a soup. She saw what was going on. Like she said, I only had like 200 people following my shit until I got into the 7. Then I got big, and now I'm the host of VNN. Why would I ever, imperil that? And then reveals her long game. So regardless of how stupid you may think she is playing long ball here in surprising ways, which makes her an interesting and nuanced character, because you can't fully hate her, because you can understand that this is a person who had no power in her life and was being stepped on by other people who had other gifts. And so this is the route she chose. Is it right or wrong? That's for, speculation, opinion, whatever. But like, you can understand why she might have gone this route. And now attaching herself to Homelander, kind of like MTG does to Trump, it just makes all the sense in the world the way they're playing it out. So I thought it was brilliant, just utterly brilliant. Man. Again,
that's the thing with a show like this. Like, it's so intelligently written with moments of absolute shock peppered throughout, in terms of heads blowing up or anal injections or adult
But I love the shot of the cape, of his red, white, and blue cape flowing behind him as he's in the fetal position, nursing the milk as she's, tapping his head, and the massive United States flag behind. Just the implication of that. It felt like a panel out of The Dark Knight Returns, like something Frank Miller did. And I just was blown away by that shot. So, all right, so let's do the last thing here. The reveal that pretty much I think we saw this coming, Shannon, a mile away, but yes, Joe Kessler is a figment in Butcher's imagination, much like Becca is the great Chantel Van Santen. So your thoughts here? Essentially people were already guessing it was like Angel Devil on his shoulders, but now we really understand. And him saying, he gets the last word saying, I'm you, man. And if you came up with me, it's because that's who you really are. So this is going to be interesting going forward with Samir, who only has a week to come up with this serum in essence. So your thoughts here on this reveal, and then what it might lead to.
I mean, again, the confirmation that's, I don't remember how many weeks ago, I think it was Vogel who said it first, about like this guy might not be real.
Yeah.
But then him addressing Becca, like, what a way to reveal that to the audience, that this person that only Butcher can see, his wife, has now been addressed by someone else that we thought was there the whole time. Because at one point I remember he was talking in a couple episodes ago, and already the theory had been out there, so it was in my head. He was talking about some mission that he and Butcher had been on for the CIA, and I was like, I wonder if he never made it out of that mission. And he kind of confirms that. So yeah, I mean, not unexpected, but the way that they did it was super cool. And knowing that both of them, Becca and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, these are manifestations of Butcher's personality. So it's literally who is going to win, the angel or the devil on his shoulder.
Well, the irony that he is in a civil war, while in essence it seems like the country is being led into a civil war between, the people that believe in Starlight and the people that believe in Homelander. So we have this prevailing feeling of civil war throughout the season rather. And certainly with Butcher, it's very close to home in what's going on with him and his approach. And how is Ryan going to play it all? Because Becca calls him out and says, what about Ryan? You haven't thought about Ryan? And the airborne thing, Shannon, that was a chilling moment. Like being told that if he does create this, essentially this virus to kill Homelander, it will go airborne and kill all supers, or possibly kill all the supers. That's a hell of a choice, man. And I love that is the predicament that he's in. because you can make a case for both sides, and that makes it so interesting, right?
Mm-hmm. It will. I mean, Starlight, I don't think he has any real affection for, but he does have affection for Kimiko.
Right. And his son, because it could affect Ryan, right? His stepson or whatever. So, yeah, good point. Good point. And him, because he's clearly a super now, too, right? So it would, in essence, be him damning himself to death as well. So, going to be interesting. We have 2 episodes left, so we will see what more is coming down the road as well. Any final thoughts? Anything else more we want to say on this episode we missed, Shannon?
I mean, we've watched how they top themselves every week. What the hell are they going to do next?
That's a good point. It's a very good point. All right, well, that's our episode of the Geek Buddies this week. We ran a little bit over an hour. We didn't anticipate it, but we went a little bit over an hour. Oh, DC. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
We went over an hour with one less story and no Vogel.
How is that? Is it us? Has it been us the whole time? Oh,
real quick. Was it me?
Was it us?
somewhere he's listening to this and smiling.
Yeah.
Probably. Yes, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter it's at @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram it's Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel and smile along with him, it's at MKToon. If you'd like to follow the very verbose, apparently, Mr. Rocha, it is at the Rocha Says.
Yeah, I was trying to limit it, but we went over. Yes, thank you so much, everybody. Please remember to subscribe to the channel down below and hit that bell button. You know, we're trying to bring the Outlaw Nation to 50,000 subscribers. Click subscribe down below, hit that bell button. If you want to also listen to us on the podcast feed, wherever you download podcasts, just look up Geek Buddies. We are there wherever you download podcasts, and subscribe. And for those of you who do subscribe to the podcast or listen to us there, please remember to patronize our sponsors, the people who support our show. If you like the products, and we stand behind all the products we talk about on those commercials, please make sure you use our codes so they keep coming back to support us here if you like their products. All right, thanks so much for joining us. As I said, we'll be back next week. Vogel's back next week, so we'll be back hitting the ground running with all the reviews and conversations in our main show as well. And until then, take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new episode of the
Geek Buddies. Hey!